What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today we're going to dive into jerkbaits, and ultimately 4 of my favorite jerkbaits that I normally always will have tied on if I'm going to fish a lake that I feel like is going to be a jerkbait pattern. Now, this is the thing, tweaking jerkbaits is a huge deal in ultimately getting the most performance out of your bait, depending on the weather conditions, the water conditions, water clarity, water temperature. So we're going to dive into more an in-depth look at what I'm ultimately doing to these jerkbaits here right now. Oh my gosh. Okay, so talking about, there's tons of jerkbaits out there in the market, tons of them, and I own probably, I don't know, 15 different kinds of jerkbaits. I would assume maybe even more than that, but I have a few that I always will throw, and one that I've really liked recently has been this 13 Fishing Loco Special. This is actually a regurgitated shad. It's a really good little bait, and it dives pretty deep. It says 6 to 9 feet, which is probably pretty close to that. Another jerkbait that I throw is the regular size Loco Special, and then that one goes a little bit shallower. OG, this is one of the OG original Shadow Wrap Deeps. I like this bait. It gets down there a little bit deeper. It actually does something that's sort of unique, and I'll talk about that. And then the old school X-Wrap. Okay, this bait is caught a lot of bass in the days. So we're going to dive into this and talk about a little bit more. So we're going to throw each one of these on the active target technology, ultimately seeing how deep they run. I'm going to talk about what I do to these baits to get the most out of them. So let's dive into that and talk a little bit more about what I do with these baits. One more time. Gosh dang, I'm trying to think what I did. All right, so ultimately, when you're selecting a jerkbait, that's what I'll probably do. I don't use that, use this right here. Ultimately, when you're selecting a jerkbait, you have to think water clarity. You have to think of the depth that you're deciding to fish. Okay, so if I'm fishing shallower water, you're gonna use a shallower type jerkbait, just like this X-Wrap or this Loco Special, right? You know, those two right there, they're gonna run, I'm gonna say, 2 to 5 feet, somewhere in there. And then if you're trying to find fish deeper water, you're gonna throw jerkbaits like these two right here. This is a Rapless Shadow Wrap Deep. This guy right here is a regurgitated shad, Loco Special 110, deeper diver. Okay, so this is the thing though. So you hear the term suspending jerkbaits. Suspending jerkbaits, it's a very big deal a lot of times when the water's cold, because ultimately what that does is it keeps that bait over the fish's head, and then they can ultimately follow it. And sometimes when it's really cold, I can remember even fishing tournaments back in the day where I'm throwing that jerkbait, I'm jerk, and I'm sitting there and I'm like letting it sit there like for 10, 20 seconds, and it goes tink. Got him. Water be like 40 degrees and just be freezing cold, but they bite it. So they just seem to bite a jerkbait really, really well when the water seems to be colder. But it's not only a cold water bait. So we're going to dive into what I do to these jerkbaits. And the biggest thing that I'm going to tell you when the water is cold is understanding that if your jerkbait is floating. And what I'll do is I will literally grab this bait right here with the stock hooks, and I'll pitch it over the side, and I'll look at it, okay? And I'll look at this, which you hold up, don't worry, just literally watch me. So I'll pitch this bait over the side, and I'll look at it, and ultimately, as I look at this bait, I want to know if it's floating, is it sinking, what's it doing? So, and if it is floating, then I need to put either suspend dots on it, or I need to put larger hooks on the bait. And if it's suspending or if it's sinking, depending on how cold it is, sometimes I like my bait to sink a little bit. I just might not want it to sink super fast. Might be like a dying shad. So this is something preference, but ideally you do not want your bait to really float up, especially when the water is cold. So that is my first thing that I do. All right, so watch, I get that B-roll. So it's floating. It's floating up, see? You see it?
Yeah, there you go. Do that one more time. That's good.
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Well, gosh, there's one right there. Just went over there and ate the shad. Okay. So this particular bait is ultimately floating. With this water temperature, the thing is, this is the little hint, the colder the water, the more weight it's going to take to ultimately make that bait suspend or sink. So, and I mean like not like sink like rock, like just slowly, naturally, slowly sink down. That's what I personally prefer when I'm throwing a jerkbait, as it slowly sort of just fades down like it's a dying shad. So what I'm going to do is ultimately replace one of these hooks and put a bigger hook in the front. You could do like, these are number 5s probably right here. I'll probably put a number 4 up front, maybe a thicker gauge wire, and then allow it and sort of see what that does. Let's do that. This is an important part of wintertime. This is an important part of wintertime jerkbait fishing, is having one of these. This is a treble hook. Have multiple different treble hooks, different sizes, everything. So this is like a, well, let me see here. Let's try to get, that's like a short shank number, it might be a number 5, but it has a little bit thicker gauge wire. I don't know, we're gonna see if I can put that guy on there and see if it suspends. Ideally, I would rather upsize the size of my hook, because the bigger the hook, as long as it does not hinder the action of the bait. That is the big key. As long as it does not hinder the action of the bait. Let me see. Gee, there's one boiling right there. Okay, literally there's a bass that, with the water being 40-some degrees, I'm gonna make a cast real quick here, see if I can't catch him. See if we got a suspended jerkbait or not. He's pretty smart. He's like, yeah, buddy, I don't think I want to play with that. Okay, so we just replaced the one hook that I had there with a little bit, a size number 4 short shank. I believe that's a size number 4 short shank hybrid, VMC hybrid treble. So let's see what we got now. Okay, so I jerked that jerkbait down. As I'm gonna look at it, and the water's pretty stained, but you could tell that bait is slowly sinking. With the water being about 48 degrees, I had to add a little weight. Now you could do it, you know, this is the thing you could do. You can add a suspend dot to this, which you can get those, or lead tape or whatever, or you can increase the size of the hook. I would rather increase the size of the hook. I do pay attention to ultimately if it's hindering or messing up with the action of the bait, but that allows me and if I really want to get really dialed in, I want it to suspend, say I want that bait to run only 4 or 5 feet deep, or 3 feet deep, then I'll really get dialed in on ultimately if that bait's suspending it perfectly at the water temperature. But you got to understand, normally you're going to need more weight for that bait to suspend. If this bait's ultimately sinking in 48 degree water temperature right now, it would probably float again or suspend in water that's 42, something that's a little bit more thick, or that mass, I guess, just gets a little bit harder. I guess not harder, but like more dense. And that's sort of how that's what I've seen personally, personal experience. So that's one thing. And that is the big tip. So I have a lot of jerkbaits right here, but what I'm gonna show you guys is how deep these ultimately will run. I'm gonna take that one right there, which is that Loco Special, this guy right here, which is the OG X-Wrap, and then those other two that I mentioned first, those deeper diver jerkbaits, and see which one runs deeper. This one actually has bigger hooks on it, so I got a vibe what might and what runs like, so that way I know my bait's a little bit better, because this is sort of like a test to allow me to sort of prepare for Red Crest as well. So this video might actually be posting later than Red Crest, but we might be at Red Crest. I don't know exactly how this is all going to work out, but I know that's what I'm doing right now. I'm literally thinking that a jerkbait's going to play really well at Red Crest, so that is why I want to know my premium jerkbaits better than I probably do right now. So let's go jump into it. Okay, so first up, Rapala X-Wrap. This guy's caught a lot of bass over the day. Old school, like Table Rock shad color. I'm not exactly sure what they call it, but it's purple back, chartreuse side. Let's make a cast with him and see what he runs. This is 10-pound line, so I'm not really getting way, I didn't get him way out there, but you can see he's running slowly 4. It's 4 feet. It definitely darts. You can tell even on that active target that thing darts like crazy. See how it just went choo-choo? Like they're at 20 feet? That is like a bad dude. All right. That's what I want to see. So it runs about, now let me make sure I haven't tweaked this one. This guy slowly floats. So I'm going to say that I could probably get this bait, slowly floats right now. I could probably get this bait if it suspends probably about 5 feet deep. Actually, I'm gonna do that real quick, just one more. I'm gonna add a little weight, bing, boom. Okay, this guy right here, let me see if I wanna put him there. The problem is if you add too much weight, you will hinder the action of the bait. But if you add too little, which this is where you get to the point where you ultimately you suspend odds. Now this bait has a feather on it, which is pretty legit. This is like literally like, you know, there's Ott's Garage Series, but this is like the OG of like the jerk baits from back in the day. Like I know so many anglers for the last few years that, so I put new hooks on it. We're gonna see what he does, but this sucker catches them. Like probably most underrated jerk bait on the market right now. Okay, so he is still he suspends. He suspends perfectly. It's exactly what I want to see. So he suspends perfectly. Maybe, we got him ready to go. So this one's I'm gonna put a little R, I'm gonna put a little X, so I know like, hey, this one suspends. I might put a dash, which I mean, ultimately I want them to suspend or ultimately sink. So I'm gonna put like maybe a dash if they sink with the hooks that I have on them at that particular depth and at that particular water temperature is really the key. And then I'll put an X if he suspends. So let's see what this bait right here, the X-Wrap runs on 10-pound line and a suspending now that it suspends perfectly. Okay, make a little bit of a decent cast out there. That's probably a typical like 80, I'm gonna say it's 80 feet, Brody. So I'm gonna reel him down there first because I wanna get him down there to like that depth. Let me see if I can, I'm not seeing him yet. There he is. I see him 5 feet. Oh, there's a fish right there. No, he said, oh, heck no. Run from it. Go right ahead then. This is what I've come to. Pretty much in the last few casts, I've come to the point where I feel like this bait, now the key is if you reel it down, you can get a little bit more depth out of him. So if I'm trying to get him down there deeper, I can get more depth. But he still runs at right there about 4.5 feet deep. So it's good to really know what your bait will run. He sinks just a smidge. Sorry. Okay, so with a little bit of testing, I feel like this bait might sink just a little bit because I can tell as I put it out there, it sinks just ever so slightly, but it'll run, if I'm drinking it pretty fast, it'll run probably about 4 feet deep. If I want it to get down there a little bit more, it might run up to 5. So that's sort of a good thing to know that the X-Wrap with this particular bait will run 4 to 5. I'll make a little Sharpie, I'll have a little note right there. So next was the bait we just ultimately weighted. We know this one sinks. This is the Loco Special smaller. It's actually a little color there. Might be coming out with soon. I'm just saying. I don't know. It might be a little custom one. You know what I'm saying? And that bill right there is it's a little bit shorter bill, as you can tell. We're gonna find out what this guy ultimately runs. Cast pretty well. A lot of times, and with jerkbait fishing in general, it's about the cast and the distance of what you get that bait out there. So it casts fairly well. Both the X-Wrap, I feel like the Loco Special cast pretty well. This bait runs probably, I can see it out there in about 3.5 feet. You see some crappie right there. Let's see if a crappie wants to bite him. Go bite him. Mr. Crappie? Huh. Okay. So I feel like this bait is a very similar, it has a little bit different action. The big difference between this bait and the last bait that we were throwing, the X-Wrap and that Loco Special, is it has 3 hooks. So if I feel like the fish are slapping at a bait, I'm going to throw a 3-hook bait over a 2-hook jerk bait. If I feel like they're eating it a lot better, I want to throw, or I'm catching bigger fish, I want to throw a 2-hook bait because ultimately I can have a bigger hook, and when they bite it and they actually eat it, if they get 2 hooks in their mouth, you're gonna be able to get them in the boat. Or if I'm in like heavier cover and I gotta pull the fish out of the cover, like if I'm fishing around, jerking around trees or docks, that's when I might take the 2 hook over the 3 hook. So there's sort of like a little bit, the advantages is you have 3 hooks, smaller hooks, 2 hook. The advantage is you have 2 hooks, and ultimately less hooks to get out of the fish, but also at the same point in time, bigger hooks where you might be able to keep those fish hooked up. So I've sort of played with this one right here. I feel like I can get him down. Okay, so I've played with this guy right here. We've pretty much determined he'll run 4 to 6 feet. Again, this one actually sinks. I can get him down to 6, but that's the thing. Again, the reason I have both of these in my arsenal, 2 hooks, 3 hooks, we talked about it. That is one of the different colors. And sometimes it matters a little bit. So I always like to have, just like this guy right here works really well with a feather on him, like the old X-Wrap, and this guy is not as much. So they're sort of different, and sometimes they'll want one or the other, different actions, but that's why. So now, let's dive into 2 of my deeper diving jerkbaits I really like to throw. The OG Rapala Shadow Wrap. This one's come out last probably 4 years ago. I wouldn't say it's OG, I would say it's a newer jerkbait. The one thing about this bait is when it comes with stock hooks that are they're thin, they're light wire, which I like that. But the thing is if you go anything bigger, which I have right here, this one actually sinks pretty good. I think it's albino shiner. And then you have this guy right here. Those are actually 2 number 4s maybe, or 3 number 4s. So the one thing that I'm gonna do is when I look at this, we're gonna see which one dives deeper. This one I don't know, they both have a little bit different profile. They have, the bills are very similar but different. This guy seems like he has a little bit thicker bill and a little bit, maybe a tad bit longer than the Loco Special. And then I'll see you guys what you guys can ultimately see what I'm saying. A little bit wider on the Rapala. So let's see right here. Okay, I'm gonna start with, let's start with this guy, the Loco Special. So casting ability is a big key with the jerkbait, like in getting depth. So I can actually see some fish out there. It looks like maybe some crappie. I'm gonna cast this guy out there. I probably got it down there 70 feet, I would say. I can see my hitting bait for sure. I'm gonna throw him out there. I'm gonna reel it down. See some crappie right there looking at him. All right, it's running 4 feet right there. The more you snap it, the more it's gonna stay in a depth zone that you ultimately, I'm gonna say that bait runs right, slow sinks. You sort of see as it slowly fades out in that 30 to 40 foot range. It slowly sinks. The more I let it suspend, the more that bait's ultimately going to get down there deeper. But if I was to jerk it fast, it's probably only gonna run 6 feet deep. So I could say I could get down there probably to 8 feet with that hook setup that I have right there. So that's good to know. But I could definitely see my casting pretty good. He has some pretty cool wood colors too. So I would say 6 to 8 feet deep with the way I have it set up, with it ultimately diving deeper, or with the bigger hooks on it. If I go to more of a traditional like standard, I would say maybe 6, like a more of a suspending, like making sure that bait suspends and like making the suspend dots right. I would say 6 feet deep would probably be the max that I'm gonna get. And if it's obviously floating, then it's not gonna probably go as deep. So I'm gonna cast this on the next one. It's the Rapala Shadow Wrap. We're gonna see if this guy, how deep he ultimately can cast, or ultimately how deep he can get down. Cast, I don't know why I said that. Okay, so I'm gonna reel it down first. Jerking him. Bait right now, I can see it probably, it's at the 40-foot mark right now, and we're in 8 foot of water. So again, I have it where it's weighted down a little bit more, but you can see that bait's actually sinking down even more so. And you see that fish sort of looking at it. It's like, whoa, what's up? What up, bro? Lots of crappie right here right now, which is, it's so interesting to see how many crappie actually follow your bait in, no matter what it is. There's another one below him that's like sort of like, oh, what you looking at? Sort of pop him up. Okay. So the thing is, I could definitely tell just off a standard, I feel like this bait will run a little bit deeper. So this is sort of how I've always set it up. I've always felt like if I try to get down to a deeper water level, or deeper, ultimately, if I feel like the fish are down that 8 to 10 feet, I'm really slow on my jerkbait down, I throw the Rapala Shadow Rap. If I'm trying to fish in that 5 to 7 foot zone, I throw the Loco Special Deeper Diver. And then those other two, you guys heard the reasons behind that. So colors, there's so many different colors out there. Normally the water clarity, if it's dirtier, I intend to go to brighter colors. If it's cleaner, go to more natural colors. If it's cloudy days, you could throw those, more like bright colors, even in clean water. And then I'll sometimes throw a flashy jerkbait from time to time. It's really just personal preference, but I wanted to go through, like, I just think that forward-facing sonar is so cool. The technology is so awesome. And that Active Target does a really good job of giving me an idea and a clue of, like, okay, how deep do these baits run, to where ultimately as the year goes on, when I know, like, hey, okay, I'm out there at Redcrest, or I'm at the first event at Sam Rayburn, and I need a jerkbait that runs 4 feet deep, exactly because the grass is there, I know which one to pick, or I know which one. And that's the biggest thing. Understanding your arsenal is just as big as anything else. So I wanted to show you guys today sort of how I set my stuff up. As far as rod setup, you guys, there's a lot of different rods out there. This one's my 610 medium action jerkbait rod. That's what I really throw it on a lot. I throw 10 to 12 pound line, and that's the one that I didn't really bring up, is the line size. You can throw 8 and obviously get it a little bit deeper, but ultimately you can, if you're wanting that bait to dive down deeper and suspend perfectly, you need to go down a lighter line. So anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. This has been a fun series to film, and hopefully got a little bit out of it. I mean, I know I personally, literally, this is just me trying to tinker with stuff as I'm out fishing, messing around with my new boat. So this is what I do. A lot of times when you guys don't get to see me, I don't even film this. And this is what I do. Like, I literally will tinker with baits. Knowledge is power, and knowing your tackle allows for you to make better decisions when you're on the water, if that makes any sense. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Actually, just subscribe. If you liked the video, just give me a thumbs up. And if you have a video that you want to see us film on this channel right here, drop the comment below. Let us know what you like, what we're missing. Maybe there's something we're missing. Anyway, thank you guys so much for following along. We're out.